Hello, my friends. Welcome to another episode of 30 Albums for 30 Years, 1964 through 1994, where I take a look at the most impactful albums between those years, and I do it chronologically. I am your host, Jay Sweet. Today, we will be enjoying the album B.B. King, live at the Regal. And joining me is a very special guest, New Jersey blues legend Chuck Lambert. So let's get into it. B.B. King, live at the Regal. All right, time to learn about the King. B.B. King was one of the hardest working men in show business. For nearly 70 years, King performed consistently, showcasing his fantastic guitar techniques and vocal interpretations of blues materials. Riley B.B. King was born in Itta, Benham, Mississippi, on a cotton plantation. As a youth, King sang in church and began playing guitar by the age of 13. He gained his reputation in Memphis, Tennessee, and began developing a local following while performing on King Biscuit Time's popular radio program beginning in 1948. So his guest appearances then led to a job as a radio host and a DJ, and during this time, King met T-Bone Walker, who inspired him to switch to the electric guitar. And after making that change, B.B. King became even more known as he gained a reputation by performing at the many Beale Street nightclubs. He also landed a recording contract with Bullet Records and released his first single, Miss Martha King. Even though B.B. King's early releases failed to have much impact, he continued to find opportunities to record and to tour. By 1950, King began an exhaustive pattern of touring and recording that would continue for nearly 65 years. In 1952, he finally charted his first single called 3 O'Clock Blues, which reached number 1 on the R&B Charts. And then throughout the decade, he continued to have success with such singles as Woke Up This Morning, Every Day I Have the Blues, and Sweet Little Angel. By performing nearly 300 dates a year, King remained visible and viable throughout his life and career. B.B. King has earned 16 Grammy Awards, several honorary doctorates, a Kennedy Center's Award, a Presidential Medal of Freedom, a National Medal of the Arts, and was inducted into the Blues and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Quite simply, B.B. King is one of the most celebrated bluesmen of all times. His advancement of electric blues beginning in 1950 ranks him as one of the essential electric blues artists of the second half of the 20th century. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the album Live at the Regal. By 1965, B.B. King began gaining further attention during an electric blues revival that was spearheaded by the many British rock invasion bands that had come to America. The album was recorded on November 21st, 1964 at the Regal Theater in Chicago, where King often played. Backing the blues legend and his faithful guitar, Lucille, was Leo Lauchie on bass, Kenneth Sands on trumpet, Johnny Board and Bobby Forte on tenor saxophone, and Sonny Freeman was playing the drums. Playing piano was Duke Jethro. Jethro usually played organ with the group, but his organ was not working on the night of the gig, and King told the organist just to play the theater's piano. There was a piano there, go ahead and play that. When Jethro told King he did not play piano, King replied, "Just sit there and pretend, because that's what you do most of the time anyway." The album peaked at number 56 on the U.S Billboard Charts. All right, so let me take a moment to introduce my very special guest, Mr. Chuck Lambert. If you live in the New Jersey area, particularly the Jersey Shore, you could see Chuck Lambert's band playing pretty much 3-4 nights a week. It was great to have him on the show. If you want to learn more about Chuck, specifically, I separated this interview into 2 parts. One where he discusses his life and musical career, and now we will listen to Chuck's impressions on B.B. King and the album Live at the Regal.
Like one of his big influences were Charlie Christian and Django Reinhardt. And you could hear it, you hear it in his playing, and you hear it in his repertoire. Like, one of the things we were talking, we had discussed was Live at the Regal, which is probably, one of the best live recordings ever made. Right up there with, Live at the Fillmore with the Allman Brothers. It's like that receives that kind of accolation. And you hear it in his, in some of the arrangements that he's doing. There's some stuff that swings, that then there's the ballads come across like like I hear, when the Regal was like, like Chicago's answer to the Apollo. And you hear the girls in the background screaming,
it's and you have this as well when I watch you play. Also, you could just through the recording, you could just tell his command of the audience, like his banter between songs.
Definitely. Like just that, like right there. The whole time. They're right there. He's got them right there.
Yeah, and it comes through in the recording. I wish there was. I don't think there's a video of the performance, but it would be fascinating to see because, man, he's got, and you can hear the girls screaming, of course, but it's amazing. It's like a communal kind of almost.
Yeah, he's connected with them, and playing so much in Chicago. Quotes from him. He could not remember how many times he had played at the Regal, which is not. I'm not surprised. During the late 40s into the 50s and into the mid 60s, Chicago was the center of the universe when it came to the blues. Like, that's where everybody was, everybody played. Whether it was Muddy Waters or Howlin' Wolf or, any of the blues musicians that were, coming through, that's where they were. Little Walter, Sonny Boy, they all played in Chicago.
Right. That was where Chess Records was, of course.
Exactly.
Yeah. Surprisingly, B.B. King was not a part of it. I don't think he ever recorded with Chess. That I know.
No. He's not on anything that Chess ever did. Which is kind of surprising considering everybody else was. But BB was like, he was always the standard, whether it was his guitar playing or whether it was his singing or just his stage presence. And having met him a couple of times, I found out that what dawned on me the most, what I found the most impressive was the sense of selflessness and humbleness that he had. I think if BB King was like, if he had been a taxi driver or a cook, he'd have been the best cook, the best taxi driver you'd have ever met.
Yeah, totally driven, right? Just look at his schedule for 30.
They hear he's playing like 300 nights a year, 350 nights a year, crazy. Doing doubles all the time, Heck, if I do a double now, it's like, I made a defibrillator. Where's my oxygen tank? Golly, hey. Yeah. But he was like, that was like regular. Right. It wasn't up until, almost, towards the end of his life that, he slowed down to like maybe 200. It was like crazy.
Yeah, and he had suffered from, I think he had diabetes.
Yeah, like severe diabetes, like now it's a pretty curable thing. And you can deal with it, you can, between medication, exercise, diet, you can deal with it easily. But diabetes was either, unfortunately, either a death sentence or where you would end up having, amputee, you'd end up with a foot, missing a foot or a finger or something like that because of the circulation problems. It was crazy. But it's always amazing when I tell people, yeah, when I was like about 21, I got to play with them once. And then I got to play with them right here in town at the Count Basie back in 2001. And to me, Jay, he's always been what you strive to be. If you wanted to say, if you wanted to be, the best blues man you could be, or the best musician you could be, then, just take a, page from the B.B. King book, because, he had it all. He had a personality. You could see the joy, that he had in playing, and humor. He could always tell a joke about himself, make light of his, what his career was.
Especially like around this time of the album, it was like kind of a particular time for blues music. We had the British invasion starting around 1964, so a lot of white English musicians were kind of repurposing the blues, right? And then thankfully there was sort of this resurgence, or like a looking back to the people who created that music, the Muddy Waters, he's part of that.
During that late 60s period, I think from about 60, around 66 to about, early 70s, by the time I got out of college. I mean, that's what it was.
It's crazy. Yeah. So talk about, you said you met BB a couple of times. Talk about your interactions with him.
One of the things, when I was at Lafayette and about 20, 21 years old, he played a concert at Rutgers.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And the band I was playing with at the time was also playing that concert. So I got to meet him there. Didn't get to play with him, but at the time, and we're talking like, this is like 69, 70, 71, he was going through some pretty tough financial problems. He didn't have the big band that he had like now or later on in life. He didn't have like the horn section. He maybe had one sax player, keyboard player, the drummer, bass player. He was down to like 5 guys. That was it. And that's how he was traveling. That was interesting because he was a lot at that time more serious when I was talking to him. Probably because of the clouds kind of hanging over his head. If you read anything about his biography, that was like a tough time for him because of taxes and, business investments that kind of like went south on him, that type of thing. Bad management. But then he got on his feet, things got better. And when I met him back in 2001 here in town, here in Red Bank at the Count Basie Theater, he was a different guy. He was like Mr. Happy-go-lucky and joking with everybody, and I have a Lucille model guitar. Asked him to sign it. He asked me if we'd like to trade.
Okay.
I was like, I don't, I thought about it for a split second, and I said, nah, I don't think so. My wife would not like, she wouldn't like the idea of that. Nah, that's all right, B. I appreciate that, but I'll keep mine, you keep yours. But it would have been nice, but I don't think so.
Sign it?
Yeah. He signed it. Got a picture, and they took with him, the whole thing. It was fun. He was a very genial, very amiable person, and person that you could see if you were walking down the street, or he was the kind of person that would say hello to you if you were just walking, walking by. He had that kind of personality. And to me, that kind of that really kind of stuck because we need more of that in our world, in our day to day, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's funny. I find as I do these interviews and such, um, for the most part, especially musicians who are a little bit older, like recently I spoke with Ron Carter, George Benson,
Uh-huh.
Stanley Clark, very accessible, very personable.
Yeah.
Whereas maybe in years past, I don't know that that was their reputation necessarily, but it seems like almost with some musicians, with age, they almost develop a new appreciation for their fan base.
Yep. And I think for what music has given them,
Right.
you know, like you say, you're talking about Ron Carter and George Benson. These guys have like their music has taken them all over the world.
Yeah.
Europe, Africa, you know, Southeast Asia, you know, all over South America. I mean, these guys have been everywhere because of their music. And I think as probably, you know, especially for somebody, you know, like Benson who lives right up the road in Englewood, you know, you would think he probably at a point where he says, you know, I'm lucky. I've been lucky. I've been blessed, you know, and that's what always got me about, you know, being around BB King. Yeah, he had the fancy tuxedos, you know, and he always like, you know, he makes sure you saw that big diamond ring that he had on his hand.
Oh,
He made, I mean, you know, how many times you have somebody talk like this? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hi,
yeah.
you know, how you doing? You know, hi, Jay. You know, and this ring is like
It's
like the
blinding.
size of an eyeball. You know, it's like, you know, okay, I got it. Yeah,
Yeah, you got money. We get it.
yeah, you got my attention. I see that. Yeah, you know, with he, but other than that, you know, which was like okay, you know, I could see that, you know, your art, your music, your art has taken you, you know, far and away, you know, where most people might not get, you know, and you're thankful about it, you know.
Right, right. And and that interaction with the audience, and again, I mean, you do it.
Yeah,
It makes people want to come see you again. I mean, the music's brilliant, of course, but also it's that personal experience. And like even those 15-minute interactions, they're really meaningful to some
yeah,
people, and
yeah,
they have millions of them, throughout the course of their life. And then conversely, if you have a bad experience with a personal musical hero, you remember that as well.
oh, that's for sure. That's for sure. You know, I did a festival out at Great Adventure once, and um, big name musician. I'm not going to mention any names, but big name musician from the West Coast was playing, him and his band, and you know we're in the proverbial green room, and you know, he's saying hello to this person, saying hello to that person, and and as I approached him to speak to them and say hello to him, he turned his back on me and walked away. And I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that. That was I don't know what's going on with you, but I'll not, you know, you you there's put it this way, Jay. There are none of his CDs in my collection.
Right, right. Which is a shame because you probably appreciated his music.
Oh, I did. You know that the whole there's a idea of music that came out of the West Coast, that the whole West Coast swing, blues swing thing was big in my head, and it was like part of it. And that individual just kind of like ruined it for me just by, not being accessible, not being the person I thought he was going to be.
Yeah.
Simple.
I'm going to get you to tell me off the air who that was. That's yeah. It's a shame when that happens.
Yeah.
It's hard to sometimes separate the music from the individual. Of course, Chuck Berry's a classic example. I mean,
Yeah.
brilliant musician, flawed guy for sure. And
Yep. Yep.
you have to come to grips with it because he contributed so much. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you hear stories about, you know, some of these musicians, and you'd be like, you know, unbelievable. Like you read some of these things that like about different musical heroes, like the Eric Claptons or the Keith Richards, and you scratch your head and be like, what were you thinking? Or are you still alive?
that,
You
yeah.
know, how are you still alive? The things you did, how are you still alive?
Yes.
Oh, and then, for some of them, you know, those excesses and those the past that they took as they're getting older, they come to back to haunt them, you know. Yeah, they do. They do come back. But anyway, but
Yeah.
BB was live at the Regal was great. I was listening to it again to refresh my memory, and I was astounded about certain things. Like the first song, "Every Day I Sing the Blues." The first time I heard that was I heard Joe Williams singing it with the Count Basie Orchestra. So
Right.
in my head, it's like, it's swinging, yeah. It's like got this big band swing to it. The way BB King was doing it was like this S flat tire shuffle. I'm like, wow, that's different. I never realized that. So totally different thing.
It's pretty amazing. I mean, he finds a way to put other subgenres into the blues that's quite remarkable. There's some Latin elements. I'm drawing a blank as to which piece it was. So definitely some R&B, jump blues. I mean, and he could cross genres in such a remarkable way. Woke up this morning. That's the one I'm thinking.
Yeah, see, that's what I was just gonna tell you that. Woke up this is it's got this like rumba thing going on, this fast rumba. It sounds like something Harry Belafonte would have done,
Right. And who would think to do
Yeah,
I mean,
who would have thought that you'd put the blues behind that or in front of that? I don't know. Yeah, it was crazy.
It's pretty cool. And of course then he did How Blue Can You Get, and that was remade into a like a rock.
That's a what is that? A blues rock staple now.
Yeah.
How Blue You Upset Me. That's another blues rock staple.
Right.
How many guys have covered that one from Johnny Lang to I don't know all Joe Bonamassa, all those guys who covered You Upset Me. That's just a blues staple. But yeah, it was kind of unusual. It's like listening to how he put, like, you hear the Please Love Me. It's like got this really long guitar intro thing going on, and it's like, wow, you hear all these influences from Charlie Christian and stuff like that, and he gets into a swing groove, and I'm like, he really knew what he was doing. And it comes across like that he knew who his audience was and who he was playing for.
Right. And I think one of the funniest ones, he gives this relationship advice, and what you done lost your good thing now. And I'm thinking, this guy was married twice. He had
twice.
15
I think it was more than that, man. And he had like what was it? The story guy had 14, 15 different children, and,
none of which with any of his wives,
Yeah.
So,
and like 20 grandchildren, crazy.
Yeah. I know when he passed away, like they were all fighting over his estate.
Yep. That's a shame, but
Yeah,
it is what it is. It is what it is.
but he just to have kind of the balls to like talk about relationships with you, and the things he says you probably couldn't even say now. He would
Oh no, absolutely not.
Yeah,
That the line about there's the line about don't take a knife to your man.
right.
Yeah, and
Say blunt.
if she go and fellas, if she acts bad, don't go upside her head.
Right. Just let her walk away.
What are you talking about, dude?
know?
Like it's okay to go upside somebody's head.
But the audience is buying it, because he's just so convincing, and he almost has a preacher type quality to him.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, that was part of it, part of it was that he started off trying to sing spirituals and gospel.
Yes.
And just didn't take, I guess, if you're, what was the name of the radio station down in Memphis, BAI or something like that, or I forget the name of the station was primarily a gospel station. That's what he would spend, when he was DJing and singing on the radio. So I guess, he had a foothold in it, he had his one foot in it, and that's a good thing. Like everything else, Jay, the blues has its, music has all kinds of music has its roots in the blues, whether it's gospel, whether it's jazz, rock and roll. You got to go back to square one, and the musical tree, its roots,
Sure,
are in blue soil.
Yeah, spirituals to the blues, obviously. And that's really what makes American music so unique, I think. It's just that cross connection between the African roots, African American music, and then of course the European classical music, and that bring in some Latin elements.
The symbiosis. You're right. I mean,
I've been studying calypso music lately, and similar. The Americans came to get the oil, and change the music.
Yeah, of course, we're talking basically about BB and his, different things that influenced him, and you can hear it in his music. But I always get back to, one of the things about Bob Marley and how he was influenced by the R&B music coming out of Detroit, because that was the only radio station from the States he could get. It was weird. I mean, you're a stone's throw away from Florida, from Texas, from, you're not that far away from New Orleans. You couldn't get a radio station from down there. But no, he got a radio station from Detroit. So all that R&B, all that Motown stuff, that's what influenced him. That's crazy. But I think it's all in the plan.
Yeah, right. And we're a product of our environment, of course.
Exactly.
That's what that was. And thank God that was the blend he came up with, because the guy was, he's one of the best.
Icon.
Okay, so there you have it. That was my conversation with Chuck Lambert. I want to thank him for being a guest on the program. For all things Chuck Lambert, go to chucklambert.com. Now, also, as I've mentioned, I've separated my interview with Chuck Lambert into two parts. So if you have not done so, you should go back and listen to Chuck Lambert discussing his life and his music before we begin our discussion on B.B. King. All right, let's do this thing. Let's drop the needle on side number one, track number one. And the opening track is Every Day I Have the Blues, which is a standard credited to Parks and Sparks. That is Pinetop Parks and Milton Sparks. They wrote the tune and they first recorded it in 1935. It wasn't very popular, but then a popular version was recorded in 1949 by blues pianist and singer Memphis Slim, and therefore the song is often incorrectly listed as being a Memphis Slim original. The song was also recorded by blues shouter Joe Williams with the Count Basie Orchestra in 1949. However, it's the B.B. King version released in 1950 that truly made the song a classic. Lyrically, the song is a statement on the everyday struggles many people feel. I always thought it would make a great theme song for an antidepressant medication commercial. Now, according to the World Health Organization, as of 2020, more than 264 million people of all ages globally were estimated to be living with the blues or with depression. This figure represents a significant increase from previous years. This version of Every Day I Have the Blues begins with an introduction by the MC. After a short guitar solo, the band dives right in with a quick jump blues interpretation. Jump blues is like a hybrid style that mixes traditional blues with big band swing music. B.B. King's solo showcases his signature vibrato, which is a shaking of the notes to create a vocal-like effect, along with well-placed phrases that showcases equal parts technical ability, restraint, and sophistication. Truly a master. The song is a high-flying opener, which sets the mood for the entire evening of music. Every Day I Have the Blues has been covered by many artists, including Etta James, Ray Charles, Eric Clapton, Buddy Guy, John Mayer, and so many others. Every Day I Have the Blues. Please enjoy. Track number 2 is Sweet Little Angel, a song with a unique history. It's another standard blues. B.B. King's 1956 reworking of the song was inspired by Lucille Bogan's composition and recording called Sweet Man Blues from 1930. Then Tampa Ray recorded a version called Black Angel Blues in 1934, and Robert Nighthawk had a 1949 version of the same song. In 1950, Tampa Red updated his version and renamed it Sweet Little Angel, and in 1953, Earl Hooker also recorded a version called Sweet Angel. So 1956, B.B. King reworks Nighthawk's version and releases it as Sweet Little Angel, and in 1957, B.B. King transformed the tune by adding horns and featured the song on his first album, Singing the Blues, which is on Crown Records. Lyrically, the song is about a sense of yearning and infatuation over a girl and the many emotions surrounding those feelings. In this live version, King drops the tempo and has the audience's support, attention, and encouragement. The audience reaction adds to the power of the performance and the album. As a seasoned vet, B.B. King knew that he had his audience right where he wanted them and took advantage. It's an outstanding performance that builds dynamically halfway into the tune. When it's time for his guitar solo at around 3 minutes, the band knows quickly to settle down, allowing King to take the throne. B.B. King ends the song by setting up the next tune, It's My Own Fault. Regarding the concept of angels, most major religions have a belief in them. Christians believe that they serve as messengers and guardians. In the Islamic faith, angels deliver messages from God and record human deeds. In Judaism, angels are seen as celestial beings that carry out particular functions. In Sikhism, angelic beings known as devas are seen as part of God's divine order. And in the ancient Persian religion Zoroastrianism, angels are associated with various aspects of creation and protection, and the list goes on, as do those who have recorded the song Sweet Little Angel. There are versions by Freddie King, Albert King, Eric Clapton, Coco Taylor, Susan Tedeschi, and many others. It's my own fault. I mean, I don't think I did anything particularly wrong at this very moment, but it's a phrase that I've used, and I'm sure I'll say it again. And It's My Own Fault is also the name of track number 3, a song that was written by legendary bluesman John Lee Hooker in 1954. B.B. King first recorded the song in 1960, which he included on his album titled Blues. When it comes to faults, we all have them, but many people's instincts are to place blame on others rather than to accept their faults. You know people like this. Some may say things like, "I lost my job because my boss doesn't understand me," but they fail to mention that they would show up to work late or drunk. Some may say, "I don't have many friends because people don't understand me," when the reality is, you're a shitty friend because you spend too much time researching and making podcasts. Maybe that's an oddly specific example, but an example nonetheless. And don't worry, I do have friends. At least I think I have friends. In John Lee Hooker's case, he wrote a song about his faults. In the song, the narrator assumes blame. He knows he's not a good companion, and because of that, he's at the mercy of his woman to treat him the way she wants to do. It's interesting to note that B.B. King had faults like everyone else, which resulted in 2 divorces. A highlight comes during King's closing guitar solo, and also take notice of Duke Jethro's piano playing. For a guy who claimed he didn't play piano, he sounds pretty good to me. To close the song, King abruptly switches keys before shifting into the next tune, which is How Blue Can You Get? On this next track, B.B. King asks, "How blue can you get?" That is the title. And let me tell you, there are possibly 260 types of blue, depending on the source, and in the standard Crayola box, there are 19 blue crayons. In terms of emotion, things can get pretty blue. To begin the tune, King tells the audience to pay attention to his lyrics and not so much to the singing or the band, and that it's time to get way down and out. This simple 12-bar blues was written by jazz critic Leonard Feather and his wife Jane Feather in 1949. The tune was first recorded the same year. It was written by Johnny Moore and the Three Blazers. King first recorded the number as Downhearted on his 1963 record, Blues in My Heart. The song was a minor hit for B.B. King and became a staple of his live shows. In 1996, the band The Primitive Radio Gods sampled the line, "I've been downhearted, baby, ever since the day we met," for their hit, Standing Outside a Broken Phone Booth with Money in My Hand. The final track of side 1 on the original LP is Please Love Me. For this tune, King shifts to a fast, danceable shuffle with heavy horn backgrounds, further connecting B.B. King to the shuffle blues tradition, which blends blues and swing music. King first released the song on his debut album, Singing the Blues. In the lyrics, the narrator is infatuated with a girl, and he tells her, "If you love me, I'll do anything you say." The lyrics then shift to, "If you love me, do everything I say. And if you don't do what I tell you, you better get on your knees and pray." It may be a statement that relationships change, and that we take the person we were once trying so hard to get for granted as relationships evolve. Alright, time to flip the record and drop the needle on side number 2, track number 1. The piece is called You Upset Me Baby, and the song begins after the MC reintroduces B.B. King, and then the band breaks into a slow blues. Then there's one of the worst tape edits I've ever heard, and finally the music picks up, and King presents the medium up-tempoed You Upset Me Baby. The song was first released by King in 1954 as a single, and became one of B.B. King's biggest hits, reaching number 1 on the R&B charts. The tune features stop-time vocal breaks And in this case, the word upset is not used to reveal sadness. Instead, King uses the term upset to mean excitement. In the opening lyrics, the narrator gives his girlfriend's dimensions. So just in case you want to buy her some clothes, you should know that she's 36 in the bust, 28 in the waist, and 44 in the hips. Track number 2 of side number 2 is Worry, Worry. This is an old blues tune in which B.B. King tells the audience it's time to go way back. King first recorded the song on a 1962 album called Easy Listening Blues. Clocking in at 6 minutes and 24 seconds, this track is by far the most lengthy on the record. B.B. King gives an absolute blues clinic on this one, and the band seems to read his signals perfectly by presenting abrupt dynamic shifts and stop time figures. The audience response certainly adds to the overall energy of the track. The song is about a worrier whose life is miserable. Towards the end of the tune, B.B. King gives some pretty odd relationship advice. Now remember, he was twice divorced. Take notice of his falsetto singing on this track, Worry, Worry. Track number 3 of side number 2 is a B.B. King original titled Woke Up This Morning. The tune begins with a Latin feel. By offering such a unique groove to the blues, B.B. King offers some variety to the form. About a minute in, the band switches back to the more characteristic shuffle swing feel. Lyrically, the song is about a guy who woke up to an empty bed because his girlfriend left him. The tune is all of 1 minute and 45 seconds long. It's a quick get up and go. This next track is You Done Lost Your Good Thing Now, which brings the music back to a more down-home blues. It's what B.B. King does best. The song builds throughout. One of the great lines in the tune is, "The way I used to love you, that's the way I hate you now." Relationships are not easy, and B.B. King knew that. A known ladies' man, King fathered 15 children, none of which were with his wives. Many of them have fought over his estate after he died in 2015. The final track on the original LP is Help the Poor, which was written by Charles Singleton and was first released by B.B. King in 1964. In terms of feel, the music blends bossa nova, soul, and blues. Throughout the song, the narrator asks for help. In this case, the word poor is being used as a homonym, with poor meaning both sad and broke. Throughout his career, B.B. King figured out a way to monetize the blues to ensure that he never went poor. According to web sources, his net worth was about $10 million. All right, my friends, we did it. We made it to the end of the album. Certainly we are better for it, so please lift the needle off of the record and put it back in its jacket and put it away for another day. In conclusion, Live at the Regal is one of the most celebrated live blues albums of all time. The record reveals that B.B. King had complete command over his audience. He was a masterful guitarist and a really fine singer who was deserving of the many accolades he has received. After a long fight with diabetes, B.B. King died in 2015 at the age of 89 years old, but he performed pretty much up until his death, 88 years old. So, long live the King. Okay, there we have it. That's today's program. I do want to thank you all for listening and enjoying. I hope for all things regarding the program, you can go to 30albumsfor30years.com. We also run these on YouTube. We connect on social media, the whole thing. So check us out. Also, if you have an opportunity, please go see Chuck Lambert perform. You will not be disappointed. He's a great performer. And for all things Chuck Lambert, go to chucklambert.com. It was great having him on the program. So together, let's keep this music alive. Have a wonderful day, and I hope you join me for our next episode.